A couple of interesting stories when it comes to child support and spousal support, including a Nova Scotia man arrested after avoiding $500,000 in child support payments. Joseph Patrick Power was arrested November 20th in Montreal. He is now in custody after 5 years of avoiding authorities over unpaid child support. He was arrested in Montreal, transported to Nova Scotia, where he is still in custody. He is subject to 3 arrest warrants issued by Nova Scotia courts since 2015. That was for failing to attend court hearings related to his refusal to pay more than $500,000 in child support and interest to his children and ex-spouse. Joining us to talk about this and a couple of other cases is Laura Paris, associate lawyer at Shulman Partners LLP. Laura, welcome back to the show. Thanks for doing this.
Hi, Barb. Thanks for having me.
This is obviously a pretty extreme case, but do we ever come across stories like this in Ontario?
Absolutely. You come across it quite often. Now, I mean, to get to the point of arrest means that the government agency that collects support, which is the Family Responsibility Office in Ontario, means that they've exhausted all other options. So usually the arrest is the last resort option.
So I'm writing this down because I wanted to ask you about that. The Family Responsibility Office, often referred to as FRO, that is the place that facilitates the payment from the person who's supposed to pay to the person who's supposed to receive payment. And I guess that's done through garnering wages?
Yes, exactly. So there's a few different remedies that the Family Responsibility Office has, and they only really proceed with those remedies in the event of mispayment. So for the most part, if you have a support order and you decide to have support being facilitated through the FRO, you provide them with your banking details, and they will directly remove the money from your account every month and transfer it directly into your ex-spouse's account. So in circumstances where, let's say, the funds aren't available through that account anymore, that's what allows them, the Family Responsibility, to start moving forward with their enforcement measures. And part of what they do to enforce is to either garnish wages or to garnish other bank accounts that you did not previously disclose, etc.
So when this happens, I know there are a million different scenarios, but are these situations of people maybe who have lost their jobs or who are actively trying to hide what they're earning so that they don't have to pay?
I definitely think you're going to see both situations that come up, but more often than not, it's the people that are actively avoiding the payment of child support. Usually, if someone has a legitimate reason as to why they can't continue to pay support, they're going to try and deal with that before the FRO has to start taking any sort of enforcement measures. Because again, while we start with something like garnishing wages or garnishing accounts, the ultimate remedies that they can include, that they can start to proceed to include suspension of driver's license, suspension of passport, etc. So before things get to that point, usually if someone legitimately can't afford support anymore, they're going to try and deal with it before the FRO starts to take more aggressive steps.
Okay, so in this guy's case, failure to attend court hearings for years, he was eventually sentenced in absentia to 60 days in jail. And it's interesting because his ex sued the province's enforcement unit, which I guess is their equivalent of the Family Responsibility Office, for not collecting the money. And once she sued them, they actually found him in Montreal.
Right. And I mean, it's quite interesting to see that. That's not something that you necessarily see often, but I think you do have to give a little bit of credit to these agencies. I mean, they are a service that essentially provides support recipients with an opportunity to proceed with these enforcement measures without actually expending legal funds themselves. So I think to a certain extent, we need to appreciate that they have a very heavy caseload as well. And sometimes they need to prioritize in terms of the steps that they're taking and on what files they're taking these steps on. So it's definitely an interesting perspective to see that she's taking these legal steps directly towards the government agency. But I think we do got to give them a little bit of credit because they do have a lot of work to do.
Okay, let me ask you about another high-profile case, and I thought this would be interesting to show sort of the flip side of what can happen. So Kelly Clarkson, the singer, is breaking up with her husband. They have 2 kids. The husband is seeking $436,000 a month for spousal and child support from the singer. Now, one thing I got is she probably is incredibly wealthy, so he would be entitled to spousal support if she was supporting all of them. But apparently she was told or found that she would serve as the primary guardian for the kids. So why would the husband, or how could the husband, go after child support in addition to spousal support if she's the one who's looking after the kids?
If she has primary care of the children, based on the laws in Ontario, and I can't necessarily speak to the laws in the jurisdiction that they're operating out of, but based on the laws in Ontario, if you have primary care, there would not be child support payable. So
that's how it works here.
Yeah, so in that regard, it wouldn't apply equally here.
Okay, and then for you look at something like this, it sounds like a lot of money, but isn't it always determined by, it's like a portion or a percentage of the main income person's salary?
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, in Ontario, we're guided by the Spousal Support Advisory Guidelines. So, I mean, it may be in their jurisdiction that things are done a little bit differently, but essentially what spousal support tries to achieve is to equalize the net disposable income that each party has when they leave a marriage. So, I'm assuming that Kelly's income is very, very high to come up with a monthly support payment of almost $500,000 a month. But again, it's typically tied to income, and again, it's achieving to somehow equalize the net disposable income between the payor and the recipient.
Okay, great stuff, Laura Paris. Always great to have you. Thank you for this.
Thanks, Barb.
Laura is a family lawyer, associate lawyer at Shulman Partners LLP.